And turning to some breaking news, we have just learned that a formal lab has confirmed the suspicion that white powdery substance found in the West Wing on Sunday was in fact positive for cocaine.
Not negative for cocaine, positive for cocaine, because they have a very positive worldview in the Biden White House. And, they're positive it's cocaine. They should leave it in the lost and found and see if Hunter comes by to ask if they found it. It's a lot of fun that talk about Hunter because they found it Sunday. He was in the White House on Friday, and then he went to Camp David. They should go up to Camp David with the drug-sniffing dogs, too, just to be certain. And they're saying, well, Sunday was probably, it's in the visitor area. It's probably a visitor. It had nothing to do with anybody. Senator Tom Cotton, Harvard Law School, United States Army, combat veteran. Democrats hate him. He's too smart, and he's a man. And he identifies as a man, too. He knows what his pronouns are and things like that, so naturally they despise him. But Senator Tom Cotton is demanding. He sent a letter demanding to the head of the Secret Service, who's a lady. She's a lady Secret Service. And Senator Tom Cotton says that he wants to know whether the area in which the cocaine was found is an area where people handle classified information, confidential classified information. Because, you want to know if you've got somebody in the White House who is a cokehead and has, maybe a top secret SCI security clearance and might be compromised by, the Chinese, for example, like Joe Biden is, and and so many other Democrats, and like Eric Swalwell is. And I remember Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy working for her in her San Francisco office for about 20 years. Then the FBI said, hey, Diane, hey, Di. Hey, the guy driving you around has wired your car for audio because he's a Chinese secret agent and you've been paying him for 20 years. Hello, McFly. And then, of course, Swalwell, he had Fang that he was having sex with for years, and she was a Chinese spy. She helped shepherd him from a city council seat in California to the House of Representatives and the House Intelligence Committee. And that seems to be a non-story because he's a Democrat and they can have sex with Chinese spies that are honeypots sent to the United States to cultivate politicians and groom them. More grooming. Democrats hate that word grooming, don't they? First of all, they don't engage in basic Western grooming habits as a rule. So they don't like grooming, when it comes to staying clean and combing their hair, shampooing, things like that. Like, what's her name at the New York Times, she doesn't know Western grooming habits. Yeah, Maggie Haberman, she doesn't know what shampoo is for and things like that. It looks like she's just rolled off the campaign trail every day for the last 10 years or so. Not very good. So it's a highly secure complex, the White House complex, and Senator Tom Cotton wants to know exactly where it was found. And the Secret Service will doubtless stonewall because they. So we got a lot for you on that. That was good stuff. That was, of course, that was Andrea Mitchell. We came in with that NBC fake news. Pretty good stuff. Let's go to soundbite numero uno. That's what the Democrats use instead of English. Let's go to, I believe it was James Rosen from Newsmax. Formerly of Fox News, James Rosen covers the White House for Newsmax TV. I work for Newsmax TV. I do the television show there at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I was particularly happy with last night's television show. I'm a fairly harsh critic of my own self, and I'm strict, a bit of a disciplinarian. And last night I was very happy with the show. And in fact, we used this clip last night on my humble television show on Newsmax TV at 9 p.m. Eastern. And it's of Cringe. Cringe. That's short for Cringe Jean-Pierre. And everybody's calling her Cringe now. Am I right? I hear everybody calling her Cringe. I hear on TV networks people calling her Cringe, and people are calling her Cringe. I think that was my nickname for her. It's become very popular. Cringe Jean-Pierre being asked a bit about the cocaine yesterday, and of course not answering.
Can you explain which entrance we're talking about?
I'm going to let the Secret Service speak to that.
Okay. Can you explain why you can't explain it? I mean, you described it as a heavily traveled area.
That's what I'm just saying what the Secret Service said. We got this from the Secret Service.
I don't know. It's just whatever the Secret Service said. I can't say anything, and they don't hold press conferences. So I'll just stonewall here, and I'll sidestep, and then, as long as the two reporters in the room don't press me on it, it won't be a thing. Now that I hear it, I'm not sure if that's James Rosen or not, but it may be. I like James. He's a good guy. He's fun. He's smart and funny. And he covers the White House for Newsmax, and he's a good guy. And then also yesterday, Joe Biden, they had a little bit of a photo op. That's a photography opportunity, a photo op in the Oval Office. And Joe Biden was sitting there looking like he was addled and half asleep. And he had this weird, creepy smile on his face, like he wanted to sniff a little girl. He used to shower with his daughter until she was how old? She thought it was terribly inappropriate. Then she became a sex addict, and among her other addictions. And she wrote in her diary. Remember then they arrested people for getting a hold of her diary, even though she just left it someplace? They had, FBI had raids. That was, a good, what's his name? They raided his home, James O'Keefe. Yeah, it was James O'Keefe that they raided his home because somebody gave him the Ashley Biden diary, which she left behind in another passive-aggressive effort by another Biden child, revealing all kinds of dirt about Joe Biden. And the news media couldn't care less. It would be impossible for them to care less. So Joe Biden is sitting there with a weird look on his face, a weird smile, looking like he might nod off at any time. I think he was having dreams of another episode of Hazel just ahead. And he loves Shirley Booth. And a couple of reporters actually shouted questions at him, but he just sat there weirdly smirking because he knows there is no accountability for him in Washington.
Mr. President, what makes you confident
Now, I want to explain what's happening there. There are members of the press corps in the Oval Office. I believe it was in the Oval Office. It was in the White House. And a photo op is going on. And one woman started asking questions about the cocaine, right? And then the White House staffers, the press office people, start shouting. And I think another reporter, too, started asking questions also about the cocaine. Joe Biden is smirking and not answering questions at all, and his eyelids are heavy like he's being hypnotized. And then the press office people, the junior people in the White House press office, shout over the reporters, shout them down while telling them to get out of the room because we're becoming more and more like the Soviet Union every day. And now it's normal for the junior people in the lower press office, as they call it, in the White House, to eventually tell the press, time to get out of the room, and they say, okay, all right, we're done, and stuff like that. But they did that as soon as the first question was asked, all right? Normally, in an American White House, you let the press ask a couple of questions, maybe the president answers in some fashion or another. That doesn't happen very much with Sleepy Joe. He did look like he was Sleepy Joe yesterday. And they just shout him down, they shout over him, and they, cajole and more or less shove them out of the room, and no questions were answered because the Democrat Party. You know what I'm talking about? And that's and you've seen the video before, but that's again. Normally, I do it after a question or two is taken by the president and answered, and that's why we have a press corps that has access to the White House. But they don't answer any questions, and the press doesn't care very much. There are a couple of news organizations that do, Newsmax being one of them. See, I got another Newsmax. And now let's go to MSDNC. Andrea Mitchell, who, again, she definitely covered the Reagan White House, maybe the Carter White House. She's been around town for a while. And she, she's gone in through the northwest gate of the White House more times than I can imagine that I could count. I too I had what they call a White House hard pass for many years, and I used to go in and out of the White House. And, you go through magnetometers and you put your bag through it's like airport security, conveyor belt thing for an x-ray. And here's Andrea Mitchell, thinks that maybe the metal detector would pick up cocaine.
Everybody goes through magnetometers. So this would not have been picked up by the magnetometers, number one.
Duh.
I mean, I don't know if it's somebody's pocket or bag.
I don't know, maybe if it's cocaine. Well, see, it's a magnetometer which detects metal. It's also known as a metal detector. And if you're snorting metal shavings, you might have to go to the emergency room. But cocaine is not metallic. Other than that, great question. And she actually asked that question with a straight face of the MSDNC fake White House reporter who's actually a fluffer for the DNC, whose name is Mike Mamoli. Mike Mamoli. Do you think this family invented the Mamoli? Mike Mamoli responded.
Depending on which entrance these individuals came into, yes, there are certainly magnetometers, which are mainly, of course, looking for metallic objects, things that might trigger as a weapon that wouldn't necessarily pick up a controlled substance like this, an illegal substance, which ultimately was discovered and proven here.
And proven here. That's a good response, Mike Mamoli. Yeah. When he goes into the White House, they take a mammogram. He goes through the scanner, and they give him his results as he walks out. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is running for the presidency of the United States, and he was asked about the cocaine yesterday. He saw an opportunity for a little bit of funny.
Well, I've long believed, I think a lot of us have believed, that the Biden administration's been blowing it on a lot of fronts, but I guess it's a little bit more literal than even I had thought.
But being a little blowing it, see, blow as cocaine is blow, and he's blowing, and it's blowing. So he did a blowing it joke, and that reminded us this morning that Biden, when he went to Ireland recently, do you remember this? It was discovered, and the news media completely ignored it, that his real family name, his great-grandfather that came over from Ireland, was actually a man named Blewett. Blewett. So he's a descendant of Edward Blewett that came to the United States from Ireland way back when in the 1800s, and he went to Scranton, and he's a Blewett. So really, he's Joe Blewett. If his name were still Joe Blewett, I don't think he would have been elected president. But since the Blewett family is now in charge in America, Blewett. This is true. This is real. Blewitt, Blewett, Edward Blewett, and Joe Blewett, and Joe continues to Blewett. Boy, oh boy. Mike Pence, he's the former vice president of the United States, and he's apparently running for president too. And he was asked about it on the Hugh Hewitt show. And I assume Hugh Hewitt asked him about it since it was the Hugh Hewitt show. And Mike Pence said, well, not only this, but that.
We ought to know who the leaker was at the Supreme Court who leaked the early version of the Dobbs case. We ought to know in real time who brought and left cocaine on a table in the residence in the White House, but I'm not holding my breath. Yeah,
I agree. And honestly, the whole Supreme Court thing, it's I've narrowed it down to a female law clerk working for Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who comes from a wealthy Democrat family who are big Democrat Party donors. And she went to an Ivy League school, and she leaked it to Josh, at Politico. And that means there are emails or text messages and the FBI could have figured it out like this, like that, lickety-split, right? And gosh, we still don't know because we can't get to the bottom of anything in this city if it's bad news for a Democrat because it's an extremely corrupt city. It's called Washington, D.C., and there's a great deal of corruption here. It's everywhere. I would have sat down all the clerks, especially the female clerks working for Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who looks an awful lot like Jake LaMotta. Have you noticed that? She looks an awful lot like Jake LaMotta. Never mind that. I've got more. And then censorship, because the Democrat Party believes in censorship and not free speech. I've got that coming up as well. And that is an extremely important story and a very important issue facing the nation, the United States of America. You know, CBDs are everywhere. CBD, everywhere you look, there's CBD. It's in everything. And my friends at Generic CBD have infused it into their number one selling, deep penetrating muscle and joint cream. And let me tell you, the stuff is amazing. It melts right into your knees, your elbows, your shoulder, your back, especially those stiff hands, too. It goes to work in just seconds. And it's also, you know, people will tell you it's also a fantastic moisturizer while it relieves pain and discomfort. The company is called GenericCBD.com. You've heard me talk about them before. They sell premium, high-end, really deluxe CBD products for a lot less money. And right now, you can try their muscle and joint cream absolutely free. It's completely free. All you do is pay $2.95 for shipping, and you get it for free. Don't worry, there's no subscription or any of that, no strings attached. They just want you to try it for free because they know you're going to love it and come back for more. So get your free sample at GenericCBD.com. GenericCBD.com. That's GenericCBD.com. These products and statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. The products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or illness. Yeah, the mysteries that surround us in Washington, D.C. If only we had like a Federal Bureau of Investigation or something like that, or if we had any law enforcement agencies here. Well, we have like 44 law enforcement agencies here. They sure got all those January 6 people, didn't they? How about the people that torched the Church of the Presidents? Did they get them? Tried to tear down the statue in Lafayette Park. Did they get them? Huh? No? Forced the evacuation of President Trump to the bunker. Did any of those charged with crimes? Any of those people arrested? No? Not a one? Hey, Chris here with some exciting news. Now you can listen to me live on the WMAL app. Doesn't matter if you're in your car, in the office, on the go. The WMAL app delivers crystal clear around-the-clock news coverage anywhere with cell service or Wi-Fi. So don't miss a second of your favorite shows. Download the WMAL app today on the Apple App Store or at Google Play Store. All right, let's get to Congressman James Comer, who was on the Sean Hannity program on the Fox News Channel last night talking about his Oversight Committee and their interest in this.
The House Oversight Committee has jurisdiction over the Secret Service, so we're expecting to be briefed on that. We have concerns about national security risks. Obviously, there are a lot of explanations that could be made for what happened there. But, at the end of the day, with all the money and all the security that we have around the White House, something like this should never happen.
You know, the truth is, it's fun to, make fun of Hunter Biden and the Biden family. But Hunter Biden was at Camp David, left for Camp David with his corrupt father on Friday. They found the coke on Sunday. It's not Hunter's coke. So these radical left-wing extremist millionaires, they're probably not worth $1 billion, but I bet they're worth more than $100 million each. The Ben & Jerry's ice cream people, and they're leftists. They're crazy leftists. Everybody knows it. And yesterday I read a story because they hate the 4th of July, and they did the old, oh, the land has been stolen from the Indians and we need to give the whole country back to the Indians. We'll just roll up the cities and the roads and the airports and the electrical grid and take it with us, I guess, and give it back to them in like a natural park setting, a national park setting. Good idea. So they're leftists, they're idiots, naturally. And one of them's got a new plan. He's got a new plan. Ben Cohen, Ben of Ben & Jerry's, Ben Cohen, co-founder of Ben & Jerry's and Jody Evans, who's the co-founder of Code Pink. Those are the mental cases that disrupt hearings on Capitol Hill. They're mostly, I think, mental, and bless their hearts. Their parents must be so proud. Ben Cohen and the Code Pink lady will risk arrest this afternoon by burning. They love burning churches and things. By burning a large-scale replica of the Bill of Rights at the Department of Justice this afternoon at 1 p.m. to protest the prosecution of Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks publisher, who put out all this stuff about the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war. Julian Assange did, and it's a hotly debated thing, whether he should be charged or not, but he's facing charges. And the Obama administration naturally declined to indict Julian Assange because it would risk criminalizing basic journalistic activities. Sure, that's why. Actually, the Obama administration prosecuted more people for talking to the media than all other administrations combined because they don't believe in free speech. Don't be ridiculous. You're a very silly person. So that's a lie that they put in this statement about the Obama administration. And so Ben Cohen, who is a fabulously rich American, a leftist, a mental midget, is going to burn a large-scale replica of the Bill of Rights. If they could get the real Bill of Rights, they'd doubtless do that too, with a Code Pink lunatic to protest Julian Assange having been charged with crimes. He's facing 18 counts. And the Mr. Ice Cream guy who thinks we should give, and as yesterday I suggested maybe we start with all their property in Vermont and give it back to the Native American tribe from Vermont. Just start with that. And then I'll consider you to be sincere. And let's look at your many real estate holdings around the country. I'm guessing California, probably in the mountainous west. Let's look at all the properties owned by Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's. And when he gives all of those back to the Indians, really if you're going to give the whole country back to the Indians, would it become one big casino? Would gambling be legal everywhere? Would there still be electricity? I have a lot of questions about that. Yeah, so today at 1 p.m. in front of the Department of Justice, Democrats will burn the Bill of Rights because that's what they do. And it's funny because it says they're risking arrest. They're risking arrest. They're not going to be arrested. And if they are, they'll get a prize and there'll be a photo op and they'll come out smiling because they're Democrats. And we all know how corrupt this city is, and the Justice Department and the FBI and the D.C. government. And if you're a lefty, you could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and you wouldn't lose a single vote in the police department or the Department of Justice. Yeah, that's their thing. The Bill of Rights will be set on fire because that's who they are. That's what they do. Also, the great one. Who's the great one? Mark Levin. That's who. Mark Levin is the great one. He's the great one. And the great one, Mark Levin, who is on almost all of the radio stations on which I'm speaking right now. And he's a friend of mine and a great American and a wonderful guy and funny and a great guy to have dinner with and have a beer because he's normal. Remember normal? Well, Mark Levin has a new book coming out. And his new book is called The Democratic Party. Excuse me, let me straighten. The Democrat Party Hates America. Mark Levin's new book is called The Democrat Party Hates America. You want the book title to explain what the book is about, and I think that book does that. Now, you may be familiar with the big box store known as Target. It's Target. It used to be Target, and then the French pronunciation came along, Target, and then they started selling ladies' garments designed for little boys, right? Like ladies' swimsuits, but with a pocket for male genitalia, because Target jumped in on the whole, children should be sexualized with homosexual agenda thing, and Target jumped in on that, and that's when they became known as Target, as everybody knows. Well, Target bans Mark Levin book. Target has banned Mark Levin. See, here's more fascism from corporate America, and it's the lefties again, where the lefties at Target decided, hey, it's Gay Pride Month. Let's have little kid transgender stuff. Now, they had Gay Pride Month stuff every year for 20 years at Target, and nobody batted an eye until they said, hey, let's get 6-year-old kids to be transgender and dress them up like lunatics. And then it became a political issue. And then they say, oh, you're anti-gay, you're anti-tree, you're LGBTQ. And I mentioned this very briefly yesterday. You know, if you look at LGBTQ, right? LGBTQ. Then there's plus because they just go on and on. They never shut up, right? L, that's lesbian, right? And G, that's gay, right? But lesbians are gay, right? So right there, you're already redundant. L, G, and then B, that's bisexual. It's bisexual. Well, if you're bisexual, then you're part gay and part not, right? But really, you're G because it's G plus. That's G plus, right? And then there's T, that's transgender, and LGB these days are stiff-arming T because T is creating all kinds of political problems for L, G, and B, right? And then you get to Q, and Q is queer, right? Doesn't queer mean G? Right? Q means G, right? Q means gay, isn't that right? Means that you have sex with people of the same sex, right? So I'm just looking at LGBTQ and thinking, really you could pare that down to GT. And you have a fast car. So that's GT. That's kind of weird. But back to the Mark Levin book, The Democrat Party Hates America. All of Mark Levin's books are great books and important books, and you can get it online. You can get it online now, right? You can get it online. But the Democrat Party hates free speech, and they don't believe in free speech. And they say at Target that they don't want to sell the book, and they will not sell the book. They're refusing to sell the book because they say the title of the book might offend some shoppers. Well, they didn't say that when they were selling ladies' bathing suits with male pockets for 6-year-old boys, did they? Because those swimsuits might offend some shoppers as well. What else do they sell at Target that might offend people? Let's go through aisle after aisle and see if anything is for sale that might offend someone, anyone. Target has faced outrage from conservatives after an author said that the supermarket chain had refused to sell his latest book. Newsweek, fake news magazine, types on behalf of the left, the censorship left. His latest book after concerns that, quote, certain customers might be offended by the title, end quote. On Wednesday, Mark Levin, a right-wing radio host and lawyer, and New York Times best-selling author again and again, and a genius, and hilarious, fun guy with a great radio show, national radio show, said that the retail giant had informed Simon & Schuster, the publisher of his upcoming book, The Democrat Party Hates America, that it would not carry the book upon its release on September 19th. I'm sorry, apparently you can't get it yet. Some people are special, though. Shh, don't tell anybody. It comes after Target was the subject of backlash and calls for boycotts over its LGBTQ plus Pride range. That's what they wrote here, their Pride range. That's home on the range, which the retailer has said was forced to scale down following threats to staff. But the biggest threats came after they took stuff off the shelves, and the LGBTQ plus militants threatened Target and their employees because they removed items from the shelves which were deemed to be offensive by normal people. Remember, normal. The controversy sit at the heart of the culture wars and appear to pit Target against conservative shoppers. So that is, that's your Democrat Party. They don't believe in free speech. They're not in favor of free speech at all. The Washington Examiner has the story as well. Targay bans Mark Levin's book, Scared of Offending Democrats. Much better story. Paul Bedard, an actual reporter, and Targay already suffered through poor sales linked to its all-in LGBT agenda during Pride Month, which really should be called Gay Pride Month, because we're going to have American Pride Month and pro-life Pride Month and all kinds of different Pride Months. Could suffer a second punch later this year for banning the new book from New York Times best-selling author and media mogul Mark Levin because it might offend Democrats. So there it is. It's, they're not the free speech people, are they? All right, we've got a lot of free speech issues to get to and audio to share with you because the Democrat Party is anti-free speech. They're the left. They're not liberals. Let's go to some audio. Let's go to Dr. Marty Makary from the Johns Hopkins University. He's a medical doctor, unlike Jill Biden. And Dr. Marty Makary talking about the censorship that we all experienced and that he experienced personally during the Wuhan Red Death at the hands of the Democrat Party. A judge just ordered, I talked about it yesterday, the Biden administration of the federal government to stop colluding with and coordinating with social media giants like Facebook and Twitter to trample free speech as they did on the lead up to Joe Biden's election as president. And also, of course, all the information about the Wuhan Red Death coming from the Wuhan Institute of Virology and about masks and about vaccines. And if you had any questions, then your free speech rights were trampled by the Democrat Party in collusion in a conspiracy, an actual conspiracy with social media giants. Dr. Marty Makary in the 5 a.m. hour this morning, I was watching for you.
LinkedIn censored our JAMA study. JAMA is our top medical journal on natural immunity. And if you look at everything that's happened, it's in line with Fauci and email and Collins, the NIH director's email exchange that they wanted a swift and devastating takedown of views different from their own. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Swift takedown of views that did not conform with government officials. Of course, a great deal of which later turned out to be false. They were spreading disinformation, and they were preventing what turned out to be accurate information from being made public because they had the power and the authority to trample free speech, and so they did. And we would have had a well-informed public debate on the great issues of our time had free speech not been trampled by the Democrat Party and the left because they had the power to do that. It's pretty amazing stuff. Let's go to Marty Makary, number 11, please. Dr. Marty Makary from the Johns Hopkins University.
Look, Fauci and the White House and the CDC tried to squash all discussion of natural immunity of those who called for schools to be open and those of us who questioned a repeat booster strategy in young, healthy people.
And they trampled if you challenge any of it. He's a doctor from Johns Hopkins University, and his free speech rights were trampled because the Democrats had the power to stop debate and all discussion on these very important medical matters. How many booster shots should you get? Shut up! And they trampled free speech rights. Dr. Marty Makary.
We learned just this week that a top Fauci advisor at the NIH, who's a government employee, was basically his hatchet man, aggressively criticizing the media whenever they talked about, for example, the Wuhan lab leak. And there's direct quotes from him saying, let's move this conversation to Gmail. Fauci does not want his fingerprints on this, as he worked to sort of commission propaganda pieces and criticize journalists.
Trample free speech, spread propaganda, spread disinformation, prevent the truth from coming out, protect your own rice bowl, Dr. Anthony Fauci, by using government power, the FBI, and social media to stifle free speech in the United States of America.
The irony is that it ended up being clearly from a lab, and it's not the government's job to be a publicist for the government. It's the job of the government to do their job.
That was Dr. Marty Makary from Johns Hopkins University on the matter of our free speech. And a federal judge, a Trump appointee, how dare he, supporting free speech, the Constitution, Western values the Democrat Party does not represent anymore. Coming up, I have the Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, one of the plaintiffs in the case. A great victory for free speech and a defeat for the fascists that are everywhere in America today. Bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-da. All right, let's, I've got more on censorship coming up because the Democrats are un-American and they hate America, as Mark Levin's book title explains. Let's go to Marco, calling from Springfield, Virginia. Marco, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call.
Hey, Marco.
Hey, I wanted to say something offensive about Tora J, and that was seeing Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anarchist. That was very offensive. But I also want to bring up a point about Andrea Mitchell. When is that dinosaur finally going to retire? She said she's been doing it for 40 years. That's about as long as Dopey Joe's been in politics. And the last thing would be is if anybody thinks that those dope-sniffing dogs weren't able to detect cocaine or any other drug by anybody who would have to go through a security check, they must be dreaming. So it had to be somebody who doesn't go through the security checks. Speaking from my own experience in the Army, you will go through a security check if you're not one of the beautiful people.
Well, a couple of things, Marco. I just looked up Andrew Mitchell. Andrew Mitchell is 76 years old. 76 years old. Still going to work every day at NBC Fake News, doing the work of the Democrat Party. It's kind of amazing. CBS News made Walter Cronkite retire the day that he turned 65. And then they stopped doing that. And Andrew Mitchell, 76 years old, my stepfather at CBS covering the White House, till he was more than 80. He was older than 80, actually, years old. And he was still going to the White House and covering that. So we've got different rules when it comes to that stuff these days than we used to have. Now, as for the drug-sniffing dogs, they don't have drug-sniffing dogs sniff everybody that walks into the White House, though. They just don't. They've got the bomb-sniffing dogs that you'll find quite frequently at the White House. But they don't sniff all the people going to the White House for drugs, That'd be kind of wacky, wouldn't it, Marco?
It sure would, and probably something they should start.
Well, during the Biden administration and, the Clinton administration, and that's the thing. Washington is kind of a police state, but we don't have bomb and drug-sniffing dogs everywhere.